Right Counterpoints is back during the major. Although, actually, I think we did do an episode already during the major, so whatever. We were back again. It's just we're not on the off day. But you know what? I'm going to do that thing where I gaslight you, and that being better than if we just done it on the off day, which is, well, first of all, I did loads of podcasts on the off day. And then secondly, everyone did their podcasts on the off day because other people don't like to work during their work day. There's only Pimp goes, I've only got a half day. Probably get a cheeky 125 kilometre, 1,000 feet elevation riding. You know, don't want to feel lazy or anything. So anyway, he is doing it on his work day. But more importantly, here's how we're going to gaslight them. We're going to talk about unique stuff because we've seen matches no one else saw. Ooh, see what I did there? And in a way, look, obviously there's a bad point to that. Actually, guy in the replies. Yeah, that means that this is going to age really badly tomorrow if we get all the angles wrong. But don't worry about it. That'll make it a unique experience. This is a one-off. It's like a Snapchat of doing. That's how bad my references are. To me, Snapchat is what like the kids. I know that's like 10 years old in itself. I know. Like nowadays, the joke is like they'd even go Snapchat. What's that? Like TikTok or something. Anyway, so I think there's an obvious starting point here, though, Pimp, which is I'm going to try and do on this show a little bit of what we used to do on By the Numbers when I did it with Richard, which is. We had to learn that, like, yeah, we're commenting on the scene and we're analysing it and we're giving our takes. But if something happens to you, the fan is just sat there like, well, you're not just going to address the fact that, you know, like everyone in the world flamed Thorin for saying something about Falcons. It'd be a bit weird not to address that. It's kind of the elephant in the room, right? So, Pimp, one, welcome to the club. Listen, that was a lonely club for a long time, mate. There was only me for a long, long time. Eventually, little Maui busted into event Die Hard style and got in there somehow. I don't know how. He didn't get the status yet to be there, but he got in. There's not many of us, right? One, you have entered the club of most hated analyst. That's actually in its own weird way a good spot to be in, by the way, as an analyst. Someone has to be the most hated, by the way. I can tell you when I was a boy, I used to watch Match of the Day and they had a legendary Liverpool defender called Alan Hansen on there. And because in his era, he won everything, mate, like the European Cup, all the league title, and he was a mega defender, you can imagine all he did was just criticise all the defenders all day long on the show. And like you couldn't win like 2-1 because if you let the goal in, obviously you messed up, you know, you need to tighten up. But it meant that like people hated him, but at the same time, mate, also he was mega relevant because everyone wanted to know, what is this guy going to say? How's he going to complain? What angle is he going to take? So first of all, it's actually good to be in that position. And then secondly, I'll always say this, even though fans don't get it. There's a great quote by Oscar Wilde, the technically Irish, but the famous guy who was a playwright and famous for his wit, right? And he said, you've probably heard the saying, he said, the only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about. So what people don't realise is when someone flames me or you like that on the desk, mate, the others in their own way are like, glad I didn't get that. But then again, part of them should realise one day, like, I just don't get anything. Like I'm invisible to these. In fact, do the players even know what I'm saying? Remember, everyone lies. Every fan on Reddit. I just tune out the analyst text. We know you know everything we say and criticise it all on Reddit in minute detail. And we know every player. I'm not even watching the broadcast. You say one thing about them, they're like, that is not true. If you were in my team, you'd know. Mate, you must have heard it somewhere. Where'd that get to you? When Pimp was working the major, he made the crazy out there comment that maybe like Bait isn't actually like some amazing team. Maybe Pimp, they're just sort of actually appropriate to the level of the majors where they're at. And who knows? I'd say, I'll be generous. Maybe they like have a chance to make it through, but maybe they also don't. You know, basic analysis work, by the way, not even that edgy. But what happened was NPL from Bait, former captain of the team, he basically got set up an interview. Stico said like, by the way, great job by Stico. Also, my joke here with this is Stico. You spent a lifetime, mate, just setting up Oscar with his orb. You're just setting up other motherfuckers to take a shot. I like it. I like it. You still know your job. You don't listen. You are the setup man. You understand it. You create the scenario, the resources. They take the shot. I get it, mate. He goes, you know, the analysts maybe like whatever, like hating on you or think you're overrated or something. And Pimp and NPL just said the now iconic phrase "fuck Pimp," and then said you're the worst analyst ever or something. Right. Two things here, Pimp. One is obviously how did he react? But two, is there any prior relationship with MPL? Was that supposed to be tongue in cheek? That's the last part I couldn't 100% tell. So I want to go. Let's get some thoughts. What did you think when you heard this? What's the situation, Pimp? What's going on?
Yeah, let's take it from the start. Just finished my shift. Went back to the hotel. I think NPL was playing on the B stream, you know, and they finished a little bit later than us. So I was laying in bed, you know, just about to go to bed. Just loaded up Twitter, you know, just a classic, you know, before you go to bed, you just want to see what happened, you know, and load up Twitter.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, I start getting tagged in all these posts, and all the videos is just out there, and people are tagging me saying you're the worst analyst ever, and fuck you, Pim, and whatnot. I'm like, what the fuck? Where did this come from? Until
Okay.
I load one of the tweets where there's a video attached, and I'm like watching that video. And I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck? Like, why is this kid speaking about me? Like, what have I ever done? Now, the fun part is you set it up perfectly, right? Everyone would initially think I must have said something on the desk about bait. I must have
Right.
said that I don't think they're going to make it, or maybe I must have said that they suck, or it's a team that shouldn't be in stage 3 or whatnot. Dude, when he said that, I hadn't covered a single bait game at
Oh,
the Major.
wow.
I
Okay.
haven't spoken about them. So where that came from, and I was like instantly, I wrote the kid, a DM, because I'm like, normally I don't address that in public. I don't go tweeting back and go into a fight. I straight up wrote him, what the fuck is your problem? Because I didn't get it. And he said that I always underestimate them and I always hate
Okay.
on them and I never pick them to win. And I'm like, so this is about pick'ems, like. And then he's like, oh yeah, it was an emotional moment. I shouldn't be offended. So it's like he had something at heart he wanted to
Okay.
say so bad, to Stuco. But at the end of the day, it was just like he just needed to say something to someone, So
Oh, I
obviously the clip
see.
is out there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So it's not even like I don't think he meant it, as personal as it came out there. The problem for me is that obviously all the fucking idiot fans out there, they see the clip, they jump on it, and they're like, oh yeah, they're bandwagon, and here's the worst analyst ever, and blah blah blah. Up until that point, bro, I
Right.
hadn't made a single comment on
Right.
bait during the tournament. He'd seen
Wow.
I didn't have them for my pick'ems, and
Okay.
I guess that's enough to be the worst analyst ever.
Okay.
So just remind yourself, when you're watching us do our work, you're more than welcome to disagree with what I do. You're more than welcome to think of me what I want.
Sure.
And sometimes maybe I do a bad job. Sometimes I could do better. At the end of the day, and I just have to say this, and I guess I say this a lot in privately to my friends and to people I speak with, but I guess the biggest mistake you can do as a fan is thinking that there's a correlation between being good at Counter-Strike and people have a fucking brain. Because there's not. You can
Sure.
be an exceptional Counter-Strike player, but
Sure.
you can have zero fucking clue about what I do in my job, even though that it's about your game and analyzing you, being a podcast talent and vice versa. So a kid like NPL coming out and making that statement, making sure that it's seen by 10 million people in clips on TikTok, Twitter, you name it, which is essentially going to have a negative effect on my brand just because I didn't pick them for my pickups. That's how fragile I am in that position. So yeah, it was interesting. Yesterday was the first day I got to cover a big game, and up until that point I hadn't covered one. So I guess we have to be careful who we pick for our pickups because that may make you the worst analyst ever.
I mean,
I wrote MDL like
yeah.
I respect your achievement. I respect that you made it to the next stage, but maybe you should think twice before you say something that outrageous. And they was like, yeah, sorry, and then that was it. So that's the story of that, but. It's of course everyone would be inclined to think that I've said something, and I would even take it on my chin. If I said I don't think Bait is going to make it, I think they suck, or I don't think they're
Sure.
good enough. That's fair enough. The banter is back and forth in that regard. I hadn't made a single fucking statement outside of not
Sure.
picking them for my pick'em. So that's that. But yeah, it's been a fun couple of days in the DMs. Let's put it that way.
Right, first of all, one reason why, look, I'm shocked I didn't know there was any, I thought, is there any backstory I've missed on this? Like, surely there was never like a drama between Bait, because by the way, Bait's not even at the fucking tier 1 tournaments most of the time. Like, when would you even had a chance to have a rivalry? Like, think about the players I've had rivalries with. They were usually like winning the fucking major or something, mate. Like, it was more just, I thought they were slightly overrated. Like, the joke is, I mean, I haven't got a rivalry with this guy because he never talks about this shit, but like, people think I hate Ziwu only because in every conversation he's framed as the best person to ever touch a mouse. Like, well, that scenario, it's going to have to sound like I'm hating because I'm going to have to explain why he's not and why I think you're overrating him. But you notice I never say Ziwu's hate that. So there's one thing, right, which is I actually do think, here's why it's not 100% unexpected this could come from NPL, though. Because, bro, I have had 2 chances now. I did a Talk to Thorin episode with him. It might even been like early this year or late last year or something, where I asked him about, his experiences, who he is, etc. And last year, I worked that Elisa Masters. I swear I said that. It's the only event I worked in the last 4 years. That one, he was at that event. And when we did an interview on camera, I actually asked him something along the lines of, like, obviously in Navi, you were getting hard flamed just straight up by like Simple, like in the press, like to your face at events. How did you handle all that? Because I was thinking, now you're not in Navi, and they sort of booted it. They did that thing they did with like LNZ and fucking Nape, and they did with Buzz and Astralis, where like you never even get a proper chance, mate. You just come in, play the shit roles, get flamed, and get kicked the fuck out. And in theory, normally, like some of those names, you never get to come back, mate. You're just off in the wilderness. You'll never play CS again. In his case, he'd sort of even beaten the allegations. He'd become this like good player in his own right. He was on a team that you've got no star players there. He's kind of like the man on his team. So I was thinking, I'm setting him up here basically to just go sort of like, how you like me now, Simple, or some shit like that, But instead, he was actually mega complimentary towards like Blade and Simple. And he basically almost implied implied, and this is a bit strange, that like he didn't mind it that they flamed him. He actually was sort of on that thing of like, well, I did a lot of mistakes and all that. So here's what's weird, Pimp. In a way, I think low-key might be a tiny bit toxic, you know what I mean? He might also just think like, listen, if people don't know that, there's a saying in English, shit rolls downhill. When you're the one on the bottom, yeah, you get banged because you made all mistakes. When the guy below you makes the mistakes, it's like, right, now time for me to vent my frustrations. Who knows? Now he's the star player. Maybe he's got a little grain of that inside him too, mate. Then the other thing is this, and this is actually a piece of food for thought if you're a pro player watching this episode, which is, you know, you're thinking to yourself, and this is actually totally accurate. By the way, spoiler, I'll just say it at the front. I don't have a problem with players ever saying stuff about us. I don't mind them criticising us, saying what they think we did wrong. By the way, I don't mind if they say we said something wrong on the broadcast, but as long as you give great info yourself, like I love it when people, even though Nico, he didn't do it to flame, he did sort of do it to flame Austin when he did that thing. He actually gave info in the reply, if you remember. He tried to explain what the buy situation is. Now they were like, fucking using up the economy or something. Some shit like, he gave like some great answer. So I don't have a problem with them commenting on us, because as the pro player would tell you, well, you're allowed to comment on my job, so I can comment on your job. Yeah, but here's where Pimp's nailed it though, mate. When you say about a job you don't know about, so think about this pro player. Sit down for a minute, mate. Imagine how frustrating that would be. Someone you think doesn't understand your position and all the moving parts, just giving some crazy hot take about your fucking job status. That's what triggered you in the first place in most cases, pros. But it's worse for you than for us, because despite the reputations we might have, Pimp, if you ever go and watch an episode of an analyst desk where you or me are talking about a team that we do think is overrated or we don't like, mate, if they ever actually do a good job, we don't just come out like, they're shit still, lol. And by the way, we would never incredibly exaggeratedly say how bad they are. Like, for example, I actually think NPL's just an all right player. He's maybe slightly above average, but I would never go if I didn't like him. He's shit. He can't even play the worst player ever. Because that'd actually be crazy for me in my job, bro. Like, that's nuts. So I will just say, if you're NPL, like, is he really the worst analyst ever? That already is insane hyperbole, surely. Even though I get this, and also, in a mad way, I think that's actually an inadvertent compliment, Pimp. Because really, if it's true there's no beef specifically with you, then what happens is when Steiko said the analysts, that means his brain quickly was thinking, what have analysts said? He thought of your pick 'em and the fact you didn't pick him to go through, and he didn't go, well, Maui's should show. He didn't mention the others. The first person who came to mind as an analyst was you. In a mad way, that's actually good for you, mate. That means you are the go-to name for this motherfucker.
Yeah, I guess in that regard, yeah. I mean, you're right, but it's just like I always have the same approach to it. I actually love when players come out, and are willing to engage in the discussion, or they open up, because at the end of the day, they are the ones playing the game and they are hands-on with a lot of things. The problem is there's a lot of players who, for good reason, if I were a pro player today, I wouldn't even engage in that, because what's the point? Like, what's the point of Nico out of nowhere coming out, and responding to X, Y, and Z? Like, he's not going to win that duel, and it's not worth his time. And I get that. But when it occasionally happens, you learn a lot. And especially, as you said, if they actually provide good context, or if you can feel that they're open for discussion, or they're open to understand different perspectives. The problem for me in that regard is that 9 out of 10 times when a pro player does come out, or when a coach, for that matter, says something about whatever, like, was that Hallie who recently said that Maui doesn't understand anything about it? Like, it's so stupid, because like either Hallie is the dumbest coach ever in that regard, or he's just lying. Like, he's well aware that Maui obviously knows and understands a lot of things about Counter-Strike. Like, so are you simply just lying about him in order to like try to tarnish his reputation, or are you that stupid? Either way, you're not winning. Either way, you're looking stupid.
Yeah.
So I think that's my only issue with that. That if someone want to come out and engage in a discussion or criticize, and you nailed it pretty well there. I don't think we don't ever hate on teams or hate on players. We basically just provide the context for the viewers at home. This player has struggled, or this team has struggled leading into this tournament, or they haven't been able to reproduce, in Bates' case, they haven't been able to reproduce what they did in Austin in terms of results. They've been a little bit lackluster, whatever. That's not a disrespect. That's just it's basically an opinion based on facts, that is then being presented to the viewer. Whereas when someone comes back and says, like, you're the worst, or you suck, or whatnot, without any context at all, it just, I mean, I don't know how to describe it. I feel like it always, at least in my mind, when Holly, as an example, is saying something like that about Maui, it doesn't, in my book, that just gives credit to Maui. It isn't, and makes me think that Holly is like on some sort of revenge train, or doesn't understand what he's talking about, or maybe he's just a great coach and nothing else, and whatnot. And it makes me respect that person a little less, which I hate. So I actually prefer when players and coaches don't do it, because more often than not, I just lose respect. And in this point, NPL, I think he's done a great job rebounding from being in Navi. Imagine being flamed by
Absolutely.
Simple, being flamed by
Yeah.
Electronic, being in that environment. Like, how the fuck do you survive that and come into a team like Bait, that
Yeah.
out of nowhere have done a pretty good job? They're in stage 3 at another major. They did fine in Austin. I think they're 10th or 11th in VS right now. We're going to see them a lot in Tier 1 Counter-Strike next year as well, at least the first couple of tournaments. That's pretty awesome, So I have, outside of what he did right there, I had a lot of respect for what he's done with his career and how he transitioned into, as you said as well, becoming pretty much a star player within that team. But when he then comes out and says something like that, it just makes me think that he's an idiot, and I don't want to lose that respect I actually had for him coming into it. So that's my way of thinking about it. It does suck more often than not when players do that, unfortunately. However, when a player does it, in a great way, and when they actually engage in it, that's when I gain a lot of respect. So it's always a give and take in that regard. But yeah, that's it is what it is. It was bound to happen. I'm surprised that it hasn't happened before now. To be fair, it's been 8 years before someone had the balls to say it. So I guess congrats to you.
By the way, there's also some food for thought for pro players. NPL, you should get this more than anyone, mate. When all the fans of fucking Navi and Simple hear he flames you and you're shit and you're the reason they lost the game, I'll bet that hung around for a while, didn't I? I bet all the idiots referenced it. I bet they went, who gives a fuck what you think? Simple said you're the... you've just done the same thing to Pimp, you idiot. Now all your fans are going to do the same thing, so you must know nothing. I hate on him. Also, there's two things here. I'll do one really quickly, because by the way, I'm sorry, Bait, you haven't yet really earned like a 20-minute segment on this show. If you notice, we tend to talk about the best teams or super teams with a massive trajectory. Also, you are in Bait, motherfucker. Sit down. You just did something now. You just had some BO1 wins. By the way, miss me with stage 2. Stage 2, I told you, I love VRS because stage 2 is like fucking the Cologne Plains, mate. I could skip that and it wouldn't even matter. I'd still know what happened at the major. Like, you didn't beat some fucking top teams there. You didn't fucking smash everyone's head in. You're not some god tier squad. So I'll just do this for a second, right? Imagine... presumably, in your world, I guess I was supposed to know you'd beat Falcons, right? Which is weird, because at PGL Masters Bucharest, you came 5th to 8th. At the CASC, that Asian Championships, that weak-ass field, 13th to 16th. At Pro League before that, 17th to 19th. Mate, what the fuck are you talking about? You do know Pimp works all the Tier 1 lands, right? That means that those lands, like your best ceiling is like insta-banged out in the playoffs, if you make the playoffs. So... mate, we don't have to put a fucking 1,000 hours into your game and know that, like, maybe they were slightly underperforming in that loss there. It was a loss, mate. Get enough W's and then I'll pay attention. And then the other thing is this. You are on Bait. That's the only thing that NPL hasn't thought about here, mate. This is why he hasn't thought it through. Think of who Thorin had rivalries with. It's actually, you know what, I did tweet this years ago. At the Blast Major, the Paris one, what good old fucking Vexite from FlyQuest, he was a young kid, I get it, getting reckless, I get it, it's all good. He basically tried to banter me, he's like, oh, you're going to get a bronze coin or something. I was like, all right, mate, whatever. So I did the thing where you just banter back like, well, you're shit, basically. So then what happened was he did the stupid thing that young people do and kids on the internet. He tried to escalate it. So he did that thing where he did like a picture of that movie, 40-Year-Old Virgin. And he was like, this is you. And it's like, right, so now we've gone from I'm going to get a coin that's bad, imaginary in the game, to I'm just like a virgin loser who's wasted my life. Well, you know what, mate? Gloves are off now, motherfuckers. That's why if you ever saw, I had to like pitch to him like, mate, at the time he had a massive like spot or something. I was like, mate, you've got 2 heads. 2 heads are supposed to be better than one. Why are you so shit in the game? Like, I was doing my whole repertoire, mate. It's like, right, we've just erased all boundaries. But what I learned from that Pimp though, and this is why I don't do that now, is I actually also did learn, listen, miss me with the whole like, but he's just a kid. I think he was like 19 or 20, by the way, guys. He's playing at the World Championship. He's getting hundreds of thousands of dollars for attending from sticker money. Like, if you choose to come at me like that, you aren't just a kid anymore. Like, that's not someone's son who's like 9 going, damn, it sucks. Like, I would ignore that, wouldn't I? But what I learned was, why am I though going down and battling like just a fucking a rando player that's just irrelevant? Like, he's not going to be in the semis of big tournaments and we're going to have like a fucking cool face-to-face. In fact, we'll probably never talk or interact ever again. And what I learned was, I'm only going to actually have those battles if you're like a legendary player. It's why, if anyone checks, I actually kept this with JL from Navi. When he was on Apex, mate, I think he already might have flamed me. Then at the beginning of Navi, he was just an alright player. So what I did was, as Navi got better, now I engaged. Now I bantered back and forth. Now we can have a little rivalry if you want. If you're on my level, it's basically the Floyd Mayweather thing. It's like, look, you can call me out for a fight, mate, but I'm not going to make the fight with you if you're a random fighter. I'm Floyd Mayweather. I do the big fights with the massive guys where you can sell your side of the card and then let's have a big thing in public where we all gain off it and we all have a fun back and forth, create a moment, So the real problem for MPL is this, mate. Your story probably ends in like 2 days. What are we talking about here? Like, you're not going to be lifting the major. One last thing. You know, like Apex when he won the blast pack. Fuck Pimp. Yeah. NPL, wow, he showed Pimp was wrong. The problem is, I beef with like Fallen, motherfucker. I'll be beefing with legends in the game who can actually, by the way, not only prove me wrong, but when they do, it's cool for them. I can tell you, Fallen and the others, some of them even admitted it is cool when I say you're not going to win, and they even the smaller one, like Big, when I said they weren't that good at like Cologne or whatever, they even said it does make it fucking cooler when you then prove you wrong and you get that cool like revenge angle in that sense. But also, the difference is Fallen had it in his hands to potentially prove me wrong and to do that. Zewu has it in his hands every game to show that I'm wrong and he's the best player and he's the greatest player of all time. NPL, you don't even have a choice, mate, to win this tournament. Like, that is above your pay grade, son. So, listen, I don't mind it personally, as I said. I also, as you can imagine, I learned to embrace that, mate. I was never a pro anyway. So, from day one, it was like, we was just going on the mic, it was that shit. So, I already knew people will always flame me. But I also think, if we're going to actually make this like something fun, bring your side then, okay, step it up. Actually, properly show me I'm wrong. Don't win a BO1. Fucking win. Tell you what, go and play in this field like Narvium, just beat them in a best of 3. Do that and then we'll have a fucking conversation, mate. Now, by the way, maybe I'd even agree. Maybe eventually, because I had to do this with the Brazilians at certain points of time, maybe I'll even have to go, you know what, maybe you were right. Maybe you are better than I thought you were. That'd be cool, wouldn't it, MPL? Just saying, mate.
Yeah, that's the fucked up part, because I'll be honest, like it also exposes one of my weaknesses, and I think there's always been a trait from, I think actually, back in the day we did a reflection story as well about it. It's not a secret that when I was in high school, I was bullied quite a lot, and I felt that was unfair, and ever since that whole like, I don't mind if a player comes at me or criticizes me or disagrees with what I'm saying or whatnot. But if it's unfair, in this case where I haven't spoken about bait at all, I haven't addressed NPL at all, I didn't know we had a beef, I had no clue. I think it's unfair that I now have to write out, 2 weeks where all these morons on Reddit and ATL TV and TikTok and whatnot,
I see, by the
actually
way,
believes
I
the
see
words
what
of
you
that.
mean, because actually I do see this pattern now, Pip. It's also why you were bothered by stuff like the snacks backlash, because it was never even that you were in, because remember, they made it that you don't like Polish people, so it matters. Like, what? That's not even an angle on the table. Like, I see what you mean. It's not just that they criticise, it's if it's really unfair, you hate that aspect.
Exactly. It exposed my weakness. I wish I was better at just ignoring it. But
Sure.
it's when someone is treated unfair. I do it myself all the time, even in real life, or in talent groups or at tournaments, and even if certain players are treated unfair, like I have this like initial reaction of wanting to defend that or tell
Sure.
people why that's unfair. And when it happens to myself, in this case, it's as said, I don't have any beef with MPL, and as you said, honestly, I don't give a fuck. Bait is not on
Sure.
my radar in that
Sure.
regard. It's not that I like. I've been Furia as an example. Furia, I was criticizing them for 4 years, basically. That the fact that they had Caesarado,
Sure.
Yuri,
Yeah.
all these great players for 4 years, never won shit. And I think the criticism was warranted. And even the players themselves have, in private told me that, yeah, we kind of agree, it wasn't good enough. And I felt that it was fair enough that someone would backlash at me. Or had I said at a tournament, I think Furia is gonna, bow out one more
Yeah.
time and then end up winning it. Fair enough. I take it on the chin, part of it up back and forth. But when it comes out of nowhere and from a guy that I have no interaction with, and when I then, and that's my way of handling it, I actually find it kind of hilarious sometimes when you go into these battles, with the bigger ones. It's fun to watch, and I agree with you. It puts bigger stakes on both them, but also you. I usually tend to resolve it in private because I don't want it to turn
Right.
into a thing like that. So
Okay.
I write the player directly, or I ask for feedback or
Fair play.
whatnot, like I've done with you before. When NPL then goes to me that, like, you always underestimate us, you never pick us to win. And when it's just like, it's the most baseless shit ever. Now I'm thinking, okay, so there's 10 million people who's now seen that I'm apparently the worst analyst ever. He didn't even know why he said it, mainly, and he had no clue, and told me that I shouldn't be offended about it. It was just an emotional moment. At that point, I'm just thinking, what the fuck are we doing this for? Why are we even having this conversation at that point? I even reached out to you in private, and you could have told me that you said this and this and this on this and this and this segment, but never provided me with anything. So I think that's my biggest weakness, and I guess I'm exposing myself now. But if I feel unfairly treated, I will fight back. And that was the same thing that happened with this next situation, same thing that happened with MPL. And
Sure.
people are going to realize eventually that I hadn't covered a single fucking bait game up until the point he said that. And that is, if I went out publicly and saying that, and that's the fucked up part about Reddit, I was like, even writing the comment on Reddit that night, I was like thinking to myself, if I do this, it will instantly get 50 downvotes. Like, no one
Yeah.
will see it anyway, because this Reddit's cesspool is just going to knife, nah, fuck it, we don't believe him, or that's not a fitting, or now you're just crying or whatnot. But that's like I feel like that's a valuable information that people thinking I must have said something about Beta, I must have criticized them, I must have said something bad about them during the major, as you said as well. It's a natural thing to think, but I didn't even mention their fucking name during the tournament. I just didn't pick them for my pick'ems. So I feel like it's an uncalled for conflict, and that's why it annoyed me. Apart from that, I don't give a fuck, because I think that like if Bait make it to the playoff, then sure thing we'll talk more about it, and they'll get their flowers, and rightfully they got their flowers for beating Falcons yesterday as well. But as you said, let's see what happens in the best of three. Let's see what happens when you face Navi in the 1-2 game, or when you face a Falcons, or when you face a fucking Vitality who goes 2-2. Who knows? If you can beat them and go to the playoff, let's have a conversation. Up until that point, miss me.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Two things as well. One, another problem with this topic is this is why you actually do need to be like a really powerful, influential player in the scene to do that trash talking, in my opinion, if you want it to hit without the backlash. Because as I said, those players can actually exceed my expectation potentially, and then I look really silly. The real problem you're going to have here, if you're in a lower team, is I always said it this way when people used to talk shit on me. It's like, bro, I get the final say at the end of every tournament when you don't win. When you lose, and by the way, the games you lose tend to be the ones that are the worst. The elimination game tends to be the one where you underperform and you have the shit game. If you've actually fucked with me then, again, I'll never lie, but as I always say, I'll just put a little bit of extra hot sauce on the fucking hot dog, you know what I mean? A little bit of extra mustard. Get some jalapenos on there too. And you know what, if you fucked with me, yeah, we'll chuck on some, whatever, some ghost peppers or whatever. Well, I can do that. So one, that's in my hands, mate. Like, if you don't like criticism, well, you're dialing up the wrong number for the criticism hotline here. Yeah, there's that part. And then the other thing is, you nailed it there. Even though fans are going to think we're saying this to get out of criticism, I'm not. I'm being serious here. And I can tell you it's the same for Maui. It would be the same for Yanko, any of them. If you have an analyst that you're annoyed with as a pro player, right, if you really just think they hate you, you can't really do anything about that. You probably can't have a conversation where you're going to believe them because you have that just in your head. But if you actually think it's something weird, like they just underrate a detail about your team, or they just don't understand how good you are on this map, or for example, they criticise the veto, but if you actually knew the way their team works, that was the best veto they could have gotten, and in scrims they'll win on that one. Believe it or not, a DM will do you 100 times more effect than the flame. The flame, now I'm even just adjusting on my shit. If you DM'd me and were to say something like it, but then I can tell you, I'll give you a little, he wouldn't care that I say this. Players like Apex now do that to me, mate. If they think I'm wrong with the criticism, they'll be like, actually, this was happening. I'll go, oh, thanks, I didn't even know that. Fair play. I'll now inform myself on that. Listen, I won't just take it at face value like it has to be true, but I'll take it on board. I'll think about if what that said makes sense. Like, put it this way, maybe he's even told me in the past when well, actually, that's because this player was ill in that game. Oh, okay, right. That's good info, mate. We didn't have that in the public. So I think that's also an underrated thing. If you're a pro, assuming you don't really hate the person, if you actually just want them to sort of like, if you want to have influence on their opinion, a DM goes a long way, mate. You could, and especially if you do it like respectful, you could get a lot of influence. In fact, that's one area I think pros are a little bit silly in our game, Pimp, which is I don't know if I'm revealing too much here, but let's just say I know the workings of how sports works and sports broadcasting. And mate, I can at this point I can even guess which analyst has which pro players are his mates or message him about stuff in the team. Like you can just tell from the angles he's presenting and the information he seems to magically have, and then 6 months later when that player leaves, it's like that's weird because he was saying that he didn't get on with the manager. Like you should even have you guys in the media. Think of the players who get a little bit butthurt. There's Twists, he's done it a few times. There's a few players out there who they get up there. People from Spirit, by the way. Again, what you actually want to do if you're from Spirit, by the way, if you're smart, is get Maui in your fucking pocket, mate. Feed him a bit of info. Be like, hey, here's the thing here. Then all of a sudden you have a little bit of influence over him. At the moment, you're replied after the fact on podcasts, translated through Babelfish. I'm being silly there, obviously, into fucking Russian or whatever. And then you're just like hearing them out of context. Like you sound like an idiot too in that sense, mate. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm surprised. Like you brought up a good example. I'm surprised not more players and more teams. And I'll tell you this, there's a lot of team owners or team managers who are trying to control the narrative in DMs. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to give up any names, but there's certain teams and certain GMs, whenever you do a desk segment where you are negative about their performance or you question their priorities in terms of signing new players, like they try to go in your DMs and they try to feed you with information. But I find it very easy most of the time to like differentiate between, okay, they're trying to control the narrative and here they're actually providing me feedback or giving me information that I can use to do a better segment. There's two different ways of going about that. I'm surprised, as you said, not more players are trying to control the narrative. I'll tell you this: it's most likely not going to work with me. As you said, the way I always
Sure.
engage with players in DMs is that I will look at the information, I will think about it, and if it makes sense, I'll take it into consideration. And there'll be another nuance to whatever topic we're discussing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take it at face value, because I'm not going to be controlled by a player. But what I always thought to myself, and I'm glad you said it right there, is the fact that not more players try to do that, and I
Yeah.
don't know why that is. If it's lack of willingness, if they haven't really realized that that's maybe a way you can. I'm not going to mention any names here either, right? But let's say that you're a new up and coming analyst, or you're relatively green. Like if you befriend them early, if I was a cynical player and I wanted to control the narrative in the media, maybe you just make sure that you're good
Yeah.
friends with some of those analysts, which is also why I think we had that conversation in our reflections episode. I've made it a trait of mine not to be friends with anyone. Like
Yeah.
I don't have a single guy within the Counter-Strike scene I consider
Yeah.
friend. There's a lot of players that I can talk to. There's a lot of players that I respect. Nobody I talk to or write with in private, just so I can go up at every single segment and I can say exactly my piece on that player, that performance,
Yes.
regardless of what relationship I may or may not have with them. And I don't mind colleagues who may have, relationship with players or who doesn't do that, because I think an analyst should have a private life and
Yeah.
an analyst should be friends with one of the players if they like each other. I've just made it a bit to separate my life, as much
Yeah.
as possible because it gives me I feel like a superpower to treat everyone the same. Also on that note, you said it right here. Hating players, like I can count 3 people I hate, and none of them are fucking Counter-Strike players. None of the Counter-Strike players in today's day and age
Sure.
is important enough in my life for me to hate them. There's certain players that I respect more. There's certain players I disrespect for what they're saying. NPL, as I said, he lost my respect in that regard. It came out of nowhere, no reason for that. Up until that point, I thought he was doing a good job, but he lost my respect. But there's no player in Counter Strike today that I hate. Not even Snacks. That's the fun part about that whole discussion. Snacks has been one of my favorite
Of
players to
course.
watch and follow throughout my entire career. I grew
Yeah.
up with Snacks. I played against
Sure.
him, followed all his journey, and obviously as of late, he wasn't cut for it. He's not as good as he used to be, and he was wanted for some criticism. But overall, I think Snacks is probably one of the players that I respected the most. But there's none of the players in today's day and age Counter Strike that I care enough about to actually hate or even be close to hating. So whatever that is being thrown at me, that you hate me or you hate that team, or like, fuck do you know? Like, if you
Sure.
think that I care enough about your team or enough about that player to hate him, that's wild,
Sure.
But that's again mental illness, social media. Apparently I'm hated by a
Sure.
million people. If you like.
Of
If I
course.
show up on your screen, what is it, 10 minutes every hour, to do analysis segment, and that's enough for you to hate me, then get a fucking life, kid. Like, get something useful in your life where you
Sure.
find someone else to hate or something else to dislike, because that's crazy. I can't even fathom the fact that, like, even back in your days with you and fucking Lurpus, I never really liked Lurpus, to be completely honest. I think he
Sure.
was, as a
Understandable.
player, when I was a player, I think he was annoying in the way he delivered quizzes and all that kind of stuff, even though I understand him way, way better
Yeah.
today. Even worked with him at certain events as an analyst, but I never really fancied the guy. But I was never close to hating him. I just disliked him. And there's a very different thing between not necessarily liking a person and hating a guy. So if we could miss each other with that word of hating or hate watching or whatnot, it's you need to get a fucking life if you care enough to hate someone in a video game. Yes, you can care about it. Yes, you can have feelings about it, but hatred is perhaps a bit too much, isn't it?
Sure. By the way, I definitely actually agree on the analyst point. Like, I will say I'm very rare in the sense that I can actually be friends with a player. Even then, by the way, if you know me, like, I do work like every hour of the bloody day. Like, I haven't got time to actually be messaging people. When I say a friend, I actually just mean like internet friend, like acquaintance or whatever.
Yep.
Like, we
Yep.
don't fucking hang out and have fucking steaks every time I'm there or whatever. But we've messaged many, many times. We've had conversations during some of the hard times. Well, that's what I mean by friend. But even then, mate, you would know this. I would flame you if you played badly. In fact, the biggest joke of all time, I've got one of the best ones ever. When Team Liquid, with Simple as that standing, made the final of Cologne, where they just miraculously made it, because I knew behind the scenes they had Simple for 2 weeks. By the way, he was a nightmare in the fucking scrims. Everyone in the team was like, he's never playing after this tournament. And if you ever watch, they had to like defy expectations every round of the fucking tournament, mate. I picked against them the whole tournament. I said on camera they're going to lose. And at the time, I was like pretty good internet friends with Eiko. In fact, I'd even like helped him figure out some of the players in that lineup. So I could have had bias there, but I think I actually am a rare person who can like the person, but then it'll never really change what I say on the desk. Like I say, you could inform me, you could give me more info, and I might be able to use that, but I'll never just go, oh, well. So I've always thought that part, because I put it this way, I can call these two people out, because they're, well, slightly actually more than internet friends. These would be real friends among the talent group. Put it this way, there's a reason why, when I go hard at Fallen, you notice Moses and Yanko never come at me. The reason why, mate, is because they're literally friends with Fallen. They fucking love that guy. They would be having drinks with him. They know that they've got a mild bias towards him. So there's other topics where they'd come at me if they thought I was wrong. On that one, they're just going to leave it because they sort of know, well, I have like an actual, like an undue bias in favour of Fallen. So I can't dislike him having a mild bias against him. That's just sort of fair, isn't it? So I do think if you're an analyst, though, just I'd do what Pimp does. Figure out what you want your context to be, your angle to be. Because again, you can just do that. By the way, I do the same thing with fucking Yanko when I see him on the desk. If they go in the bad times of Furia, like, and what about Farland? Should he be replaced? It's like, that's like asking Yanko, should his dad be fired, mate? Like, he's going to find a way to say no no matter what, isn't he? Doesn't matter if he's not doing a good job at the factory or whatever. That's a made up scenario. I don't know what the fuck Yanko's dad does, but you get the point. Like, you're asking you're asking someone who's got an obvious reason to be biased in that scenario. Anyway, fuck all that noise. Let's actually talk about some CS. So here's a question for you, Pimp. I think the angle to get into this episode just goes like this. What is the team right now that's just forefront on your mind? Who is the one you're thinking about? Who's at the moment? Who's the most interesting to talk about? Who should we go on to?
Good question. There's a couple. Liquid is one of them. I don't know what the fuck is going on with Liquid. You know, when you watch them play as well, they were like their opening day in the best of one stage in stage two. I think that was the worst opening day I've seen a team have at a major ever. Like the level of Counter-Strike they played, the way they didn't meet expectations, the way the body language were looking, you know, Elise out of it, the team out of it. Yuhei having the worst opening day I've ever seen a player of his caliber have. I think it was at a 0.56 rating. He was only
really
outdone by Vexside, who have like this amazing turnaround where we went from being a god to the worst player ever to attend a major. It didn't make any sense, you know. And I was thinking to myself, okay, Liquid, you're just going to go out. And then somehow, some way, they find it in them to turn it around. And then on the final day in stage two, they actually played good Counter-Strike. In their 2-2 game, you're watching it versus Astralis, and I know their position is Astralis, but as you said, stage two is basically a play-in for Cologne. They still played good Counter-Strike, and it made you believe that, okay, there's still something in there. Then we go in, opening day yesterday, you know, stage three at the major, and they suck again. They can't really figure it out. They don't really look good. So the most puzzling team to me is Team Liquid. We spoke about it a bit last time as well. You look at the lineup, you look at the player material, you look at what they should be able to deliver, and they can, you know, occasionally or once every third game, but they also just get blown out from time to time. Yes. So that's the team that I'm excited to see them play today. They play Ashen UA, you know, the 0-2 game, and let's see how that goes out. I can't imagine a world where they don't win that game, you know, just based on sheer firepower. I don't give a damn about, you know, the team player or the aspect in that regard. There should be too big of a skill difference in those two teams. And then, you know, let's see who they get in a 1-2 scenario. But I feel like Liquid is a team that out of nowhere, they could be in a 2-2 game, and then they may play the best game in a 2-2 game and make the playoff despite them having sucked massively in a couple of games. So that's one. And then I'll say it again, and people are probably tired of hearing it, but Falcons is on the forefront of mind. Like, the way they lost to Bait yesterday was just another classic Falcons performance where they lose a couple of clutches they're not supposed to lose. It's a best of one, a little bit of nerves, and then they absolutely own it in the second game. Have another best of one today. They'll probably beat, who is it they're playing? Imperial, I think, you know, the easiest game on paper they could get. They go 2-1, they go into a best of three, they go into a playoff. I really have the more I think about it, I have a gut feeling that as soon as Falcons are hitting their strides, you know, Modesty haven't turned up yet, by the way, in the tournament. Nico had a bang of a game, way better than we saw in Hong Kong. I think Falcons are here to win the major. And that is a team that excites me because I also do think that with the way Furia is playing right now, they're the only team who can realistically beat them in a best of five grand final. I don't think Vitality, based on what I've seen and based on what we've seen, you know, the last couple of matchups, I don't think they're cut for it right now. And Furia looks as good as ever. I think Vitality is the only team, based on what we saw in Hong Kong, who, if they improve just a couple of percentages, actually have a shot at beating Furia in a grand final. So that is still the team that excites me the most outside Furia.
Right, on the whole Liquid thing, as I just call them, they're the analyst's nightmare team because there's so many things should work and they show you glimpses that are like, this should be a fucking the fifth best team in the world on paper, like this roster. When you have a good game, I even go, right, I'm on the train, let's keep this going, let's get like 3-4 good games in a row. But I know what you mean, it feels like at least 1 out of 3 games they just completely fall flat. Then maybe like the other one of the 3 games, they're in the middle. And then they have the one that looks really good and goes, right, this could be so... Like, aside from basically Aurora, I can't think of any vaguely top team that says this fucking yo-yo and just flip a coin before the game. Who fucking knows? You don't even know some of the players who's going to turn up. Like, the joke is...
That's the issue, right? You look at Ultimate, right? That is the craziest example we could possibly give. In Austin, he was shit in the first 2 games. And then against Mouse elimination game, they're about to go 0-3. He turns up on Mirage. He has one of the best AWP performances I've seen on Mirage ever to keep Liquid alive. I think they end up losing in triple overtime, double overtime, whatever. Same thing happened in stage 2. Like, he was the worst performer together with Shua in the first couple of best of one games. And then the following 3 games, when they go obviously 1-2, they go 2-2, they go 3-2. He's by far the best performer. He's like playing out of his mind. He's the ultimate that you wish you signed a year ago.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. He's so inconsistent because there's no difference from playing arguably weaker teams and best of ones, then all of a sudden, facing the elimination, and now you're stepping up. Now you're the best player in the world. Why didn't you do that in the first game? Why didn't you do that in the opening? Like, why does it take you to be elimination or being in an elimination game for you to play well? And that's my issue. As you said, it is a nightmare because you can't predict it. It doesn't make any sense. There's realistically no player who should play better when they're facing elimination. If you're not like some god tier player, like if you're ultimate, you should feast on quote unquote noobs or weaker teams, and then maybe struggle a little bit, when you face the better teams. But it's the other way around, and you can't explain it.
And the other problem I have is, as you just said there, because I see the glimpses, I'm not going to give up on either and Pimp. They're 0-2 right now. Absolutely. There's probably not that bad. Maybe it's even a conflict. They might even make the playoffs of this tournament. Like, that could happen. I could easily see them in the best of threes, working their way into some form. Maybe you need a couple of nice matchups. You probably can't play a Vitality or something like that. But as long as you avoid the really big dogs, there'll still be a bunch of matches where, spoiler, if they're the underdog, I'll be betting on that side. And a whole bunch of the games, mate. There's mad upside there. They really can, just like Aurora. They can wake up tomorrow and decide they're really good. Just beat a bunch of teams that on paper, like, I'll give you an example. A squad on paper they shouldn't be able to beat would be a team like Na'Vi, right? Mate, there's a world, if you give me the right day and the right veto, I'm not talking like the worst one for Na'Vi, there's a world where they can beat a Na'Vi, absolutely, even though a Na'Vi's a much more consistent team and plays, because I think when they both hit their highs, hey, we can have an interesting convo. It's actually why I feel like people are always going to think we overrate these squads, because we're not just doing it because of the names of the players. Like, I'll give you another example in Liquid. He's one of the players I like, but right now I've got to call out Elish. It's like, bro... Yeah. When I watch what Twists is doing in a phase that I think has no business winning some of these games, he's fucking smurfing. You could argue he's playing the best CS of his career. Elish, mate, your job right now is not only to do awesome as a Legion Team Liquid. I remember I've tried to defend you in phase, but also you need to make it look like, ooh, maybe Twist shouldn't have left Liquid, when FaZe inevitably doesn't make the fucking semi-finals of this tournament, you need to be there in the quarters, so they're like, maybe he shouldn't have left, or maybe he should have swallowed his ego and played with it. At the moment, that narrative doesn't exist, mate, because you're about to get 0-3 banged out of the major, and if you do, I'll tell you what the first thing all the fans are going to go, they're going to go, FaZe got the better side of that deal. That narrative's right there. And also, you're supposed to be one of the best players in the world. We're supposed to say it was like some sort of they either didn't buy your vision in FaZe, or they didn't give you the support you needed, or you didn't the players... This just makes it look like they should have kicked you. You know what I mean? Again, players love to say narratives all haunt them and stuff. You guys help. What's that phrase the kids say now? You're not beating the allegations. That's some Zumba talk for you.
Yeah, that's true. That's why they're so annoying, because I agree, and to be fair, Elise has been disappointing. I think Liquid has been disappointing. And it's just like, as I said, it doesn't make any sense. Why is Shuhei all of a sudden having the worst tournament of his life? Like, out of nowhere. Why? Like, why is Ultimate sucking in the opening games, but like a beast in an elimination game? Out of nowhere. Why did Elise play like shit in that 2-2 game and then only came alive on the third map, against the Spiders? Like, there's so many things that just doesn't make any sense. And then obviously the whole Nerds conversation, like, why is he going from being like one of the most interesting rifle players in the world of Counter-Strike to a guy that seemingly sometimes play at a high level, but most of the time is just average. It doesn't make any sense. Yes. There's so much skill, there's so much talent, and I can't help to think back on you remember the Danish version of North, where they actually had a lot of great players and they had teams that on paper should work out. They were built to face Astralis, they were built to take down Astralis and be the number one team in Denmark, and they were, on the same budget cap, had the same amount of salary, etc., etc. But they just built a losing culture. All the players you spoke to within that organization, they just described it as, there's just this culture, in here where we don't work as hard, we don't practice as much, and we're used to disappointment, so it's okay. There's not a big consequence of being, on the team and losing. So it felt like we're in a losing culture, not a winning culture. I sense the same is the case in Team Liquid. I don't know what it is, if there's not enough pressure on the player, or if, I would just wish someone from Liquid would be like, you look at a player, he has a fit tournament, 2 tournaments in a row, and I know it sounds rough here, and I'm not singling out Ultimate. It could be any player, right? But if you have 2 shit tournaments in a row and you're not winning anything and you're struggling, management set an example. Kick that player, find someone new, go above and beyond the team, and don't even ask the players on the team, like, do you think that there's still hope for this guy, or should we continue with him? Like, obviously you need to consult with the manager, the coach, etc., but set a statement, set a foot down and be like, we're not accepting this losing culture anymore. We want results. We invest a lot of money into it. And if that requires us to fire 1 of you, 2 of you, even 3 of you the next 6 months before you get it, we will do it. And I feel like that's where Liquid have missed the mark a little bit too stuck in their own ways, a little bit too stuck in the fact that, we invested in this guy. He's on a long contract. We have to protect the investment. There's a salary, we put him on a bench. We still have to pay him. We have to pay a new guy as well. it's a little bit too sweet in a sense.
Yeah.
I need it to be more cutthroat, and that's my issue with Team Liquid in that regard. And then on another note, I just checked as you described it right here, that whole, Foxman, why is it I'm not losing hope in Liquid? Well, guess what happened if they beat Passion today? If Bait lose to Vitality, which they're about to do right now as we speak,
Okay.
Liquid beat Passion. Well, guess who they're playing in a 1-2 game in a best of 3? Liquid versus Bait. You're telling me Liquid can't beat Bait?
They should.
I think they can,
Yeah.
I think they can. Guess who Liquid is most likely to meet in a 2-2 game? As you said before, Navi, based on Siege, based on...
I like that. That would be an interesting run, because that's like a power-up. I like that. That's like a Dragon Ball Z episode, man. I like it. Okay.
Exactly. And that's why we can't lose faith in Team Liquid, because it's not impossible. It's not impossible for them to beat Bait, and it's sure as hell it's not impossible for them to beat Navi. So as much as I would like to say, yeah, fuck it, I lost faith in Liquid, too many issues. Yuhei, not contributing. Ultimate apparently only good in elimination games, and Liquid hot and cold at the moment. Well, they still have a route right now where it's possible for them to make the fucking playoff despite being 0-2. So it is, as you said, it is a nightmare to do that death segments, because you can't predict it. You don't know what Liquid is going to show up, but you see glimpses of it, and that's, I guess, why we're clinging to that hope.
Sure. Also, by the way, I have to say on that angle, I know what you mean. Here's what I don't like about Team Liquid. Even though they do big signings, they give people forever to fail, mate, and have problems. I know what you mean.
Yep.
What I want it to be like is, look, maybe not as extreme as what fans want. I'll give you an example. Fans literally want the manager of Liverpool fired now because he lost all those games in a row. It's like, bro, he did win the fucking Premier League last season. Like, give me, and they're on the, in that scenario, I'm sorry, you have to get the season. You can fire him after the season if you want. But I don't hate the idea, for example, that in Manchester United they want that coach fired. You're Manchester United, bro. Like, I'm sorry, those results don't fly here. Like, even if the team itself isn't actually good enough to be a champion, the premise goes, we're Manchester United. We have standards that we're going to set, and we're going to keep kicking people till we get people who meet the standard. I fuck with that. And for me, I'm sorry, Team Liquid should be a Manchester United of Counter-Strike. If you think of some of the things they've done in the years where they've been at the top, I agree. If someone bombs, you don't go, yeah, but look at the Excel sheet, and he's on a lot of salary. So what? When we start winning and we get all that motherfucking, like, the stage 3 capsule, etc., that's going to pay for itself, mate. Like, first of all, the economics will take care of themselves if we start winning again. And then secondly, it's not a shop. We're not running it for profit. Like, you're here to win Counter-Strike games anyway. So I always poke fun at Heroic when they brag about selling all the players. Your job isn't to be fucking Temu for fucking Counter-Strike players. Your job's to have results in the server. When have I ever seen a rock of the fucking trophy since Cadian left? None. It doesn't happen. You just go out in the round of 8, or you just sit in the playoffs going, lol, I guess I'll sell this player. It's like, yeah, so you can be good at Counter-Strike for someone else. So I think that's why. It's why, actually, one area I do take sort of a front with fans over this, like, FaZe whiplash they keep doing is they have the opinion now that, like, it was a disgrace that Rain was kicked, but on the level of, because the players weren't consulted, it's like, I give a fuck less what any of those. I don't care if it's Carrigan, mate. If you're having that many bad results in a row and someone has to go, you're going to think of the oldest player. That's not you, Carrigan. That's just a logical business decision. The real problem isn't that Rain was kicked. Let's not fuck around and pretend this is 2022. The real problem is they didn't replace him with someone super sick. And by the way, I say that in a world where actually, as of right now, Jacob's even sort of fragging out in some of the games. Maybe he's coming online. But, like, the whole point is, if they'd have brought, like, I'll give you an example, fans. If they'd have brought in, I don't know, Bit instead of fucking Rain, would you all be going, but you didn't talk to Carrigan? Shut the fuck up. Even Carrigan would even have to go, like, it's a good decision. In the end, it is a performance sport, and we have to. I know what you mean. Teams should have standards, and Team Liquid, your standard is fucking doesn't exist right now. You're thinking just because you've got good players in the server, they'll figure it out. No. I get to say that because I'm not in the team. You make them figure it out, motherfucker. And you know what? If they don't figure it out, fire them. I'm with you. By the way, any of them, including my boy Elise, you can fire him if you want to. You better find someone better. Also, on the Falcons one, I've got the angle for you here, Pimp, because watching Falcons play, it's so easy to meme them. As I said, even in the tournaments, they go to the semis and the finals. Every tournament have that one screenshot. Listen, they've invented the screenshot meta where you do the screenshot of 1 second before disaster strikes, and it's like, this is an unlosable round. And by the way, listen, Zonic, mate, if people think you're a fraud, you're not doing yourself any favours, because you're making like the craziest screenshot meta highlight package I've ever seen. As I say, these aren't even the ones you bomb. These are the ones you go to the final, you have one of those rounds. I'll tell you how I would describe Falcons. This is what scares me, Pimp. Like, first of all, this is why I didn't take them as my 3-0 team, because I was like, brother, if there was ever a team would fuck up a BO1, it's Falcons. Again, by the way, I'll just say this right now, maybe I'll be wrong. I don't even think they could have actually got out in this stage with the current team. Even if they'd have gone 0-2, I'd have had them a favourite win every one of the BO3s pretty much, unless somehow they played like, fucking Vitality or Fury or some direct, they could still go in the BO3. That isn't the same pressure. Monacy will come alive. You'll have the odd game from Nico. Keisuke will be pretty good. You'll figure it out. But here's where, especially if you're Zonic and this team in general, because remember, we hear all these rumblings of Nico might become an IGL one day. Here's the biggest problem you have in Falcons. That's part of why you've got this flaw. I would just use football terminology. Bro, Falcons have crazy players, some of the best in the world. They have really good firepower. They don't even have as bad roles as we worried about initially. Sure, I still think Tessus is just he just wasted his time there. And again, Nico, Keisuke, is that always going to allow them both to be the best? Look, it works at the moment, crucially. If you can get to where you are in these results, it's fine. That's enough. It's a functional team. But to use football terminology, bro, this team is not at all technical. That's the problem. That's why these screenshots exist. If you think about it, mate, you know what? Maybe I'll even use someone like a Bait as an example, or some lesser team. There are much worse teams than Falcons with much worse players. Some of them haven't. The joke is some don't even have a star player as good as Keisuke. Never mind like fucking Monacy, Nico. There are teams way worse, but I'll tell you what, they don't make like basic technical errors in the game. I'll give you an example. I think it was Passion UA maybe. There was one, or maybe, it's 3D Max. There you go. I think 3D Max had some mad stats where like if you put them in a 5v4 they were like one of the best teams in the tournament, and it's like that's a team that's doing its job, man. That means that coach like has his players drilled, the players know how to play with each other. When a situation arrives, they use the man advantage. They like, because remember, man advantage is one of those OP things in the game. It's the reason why everyone saw that stat that's never meant anything on the HLTV page. You know, it would always say, the team that gets the first kill wins 77% of the round. Yeah, they should. They've got an extra man in the fucking game. Like, you can crossfire, you can hold off, you can block off a part of the map, you can rotate, you can do a million. As soon as I have the man advantage, it's actually something, if people know back in the day, that made me a fan of Fallen the IGL. Way before he was at the top of the world, his teams used to be unbelievable at that, mate. If they ever got up, even with the steel and bolts type players back in the day, if they got one player up on you, you were in hell then, mate, because like I say, they're going to use all that shit against you. They're going to grind the round out. If you're Falcons, the problem now is it feels like you're the boxer who has to knock everyone the fuck out. You have to just connect with some crazy haymaker. And listen, no one can throw haymakers like your team, but you can't do the sort of like point fighting or like tactical fight. People eat you up. Like in this scenario, that's why I worry about Pimp. That's the one area where I feel like at this point you actually just have to straight up win the major. Otherwise, if you're Sonic, you're never going to get your credit, mate. They're just because now they're just going to say you had the fraggers. So where's where's the technical side? Where's the sort of like styled how you play? Where's the professional sheen? You know.
But that's the $1 million question, because I seen people forget that nuance as well. Like if you think of Sonic throughout his entire career as a coach, like he's always preached perfect Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
He wanted to play picture perfect Counter-Strike. Imagine Astralis back in the days. It's not like Astralis had necessarily the most individual skill, when they were winning everything. They were just a very well-drilled team. As a matter of fact, I think he was inspired a lot by what SK and Fallen did back in the days, when they were winning all the rounds.
Yeah.
Whenever you got into a 3v3, you knew Astralis would win. Whenever you had a 4v4 or a 4v5 for that matter as well, you knew they'd find a way to win. Not based on individuals popping off. Obviously, occasionally that happened and you build confidence, but Sonic has always been a guy who preached perfect Counter-Strike. Even the way Dupree describes it is like when he came into Falcons and Dupree was part of it, like he felt there was a stylistic clash between Snappy and Sonic, because one wanted to do a little bit more freedom, Snappy out of spawn calls, allow freedom to the players, individual decision making, while Sonic approached that team and was like, we have to play picture perfect Counter-Strike because we don't have the player material to actually be the best in the world. And I think that's always been an issue for Sonic. Now he has all these individual players where you have to give freedom to Nico, you have to give freedom to Monsi, you have to give freedom to Kyusuke, right? So you're in a position now where Sonic has to basically shy away from his principles. And you can use the football analogy as well in Manchester United, where it's like Amorim is so stubborn right now playing his system and his formation every single time, even though that it may not, fit the game or the opposition or fit the players you have in Manchester United. Sonic is in the same position right now where he kind of has to go away. And he's done that. And that's, where I want to give him credit. He's gone away from wanting to play picture perfect Counter-Strike because he realized that's not going to fly with those guys. That's simply not going to fly with those guys. So in that regard, he's taken that step, into the deep water where he's willing to basically risk it all. Where he said, if you don't win a major, if you don't win a tournament, then he's never going to get his flowers. But at least he's taken the step that allows him to get close to taking that. Because had he continued with his style of wanting to play picture perfect Counter-Strike, there's absolutely no way whatsoever it would ever worked out. So that's a nuance that is missing. I'm not saying Sonic should get praised for moving away from his, style. he had to. That was a must with the lineup that he's having. But to say that he's not trying, or to say that it's Sonic's fault and whatnot, is, to me, that's ridiculous. Because he's actually done the step and he's done the preparation in order to try to make this team work. I will also say, when you look at Falcons, and I find this super funny, because this whole meme about just one more star player, just one more signing. In reality, if you put Bit instead of Tessus, I think they would fucking smack everyone. If you put Heavy Guard instead of Tessus in that role, a player that is no maintenance whatsoever, a player that just takes care of himself, it would smack.
By the way, I'll
everyone.
tell you as well, Pimp, as someone who's followed a lot of sports, that angle is also only funny when they don't win. Like, mate, I'm a Liverpool fan. Do you think I didn't just used to watch Manchester City sign international players that would go on their bench like Jack Grealish and go, this is unfair?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, I can't, if I come out as a Liverpool fan and go, they're just buying the league, I look like an idiot because they do win the league. Pep Guardiola can go, so what, bitch, get on my level. Yeah, you should buy some players. Like that, as much as the people mean, because I think when they say that, Pimp, they actually mean it sarcastically. Like, even if you get another star player, you won't win. No, what are you talking about? Like, one, if Carrigan joined tomorrow, like, it's over for you motherfuckers. And two, I'm with you. If they ever signed like a god tier anchor, like they wanted to a bunch of times, maybe they really do just win everything. And then even if you go, I guess they just need one more star player, well, they win all the trophies, so what's the gag anymore? Like, that'll joke's on us at that point in time. Like, yeah, listen, I get that they have more money than everyone, but that's kind of like a good thing to have if you're on a team. Like, that's a superpower. I'd like to have that, mate. I'd like to have too much money to have. It's too easy for me,
Yeah, that's the thing. So yeah, I think that I don't know. It's just a funny one. One I want to discuss as well, and I want your take on is FaZe, because that's like another nightmare. This major.
Oh, this is haunting me, bro. Because everyone's trying to do that thing where it's like the more games they win. Mate, I can tell you, I know fans. I have a really good sense of the barometer of the community. They're this. Put it this way: if FaZe fluked it to the top 8, it will be the whole like we should apologise to everyone. We should apologise to Brokey, who's still playing that shit, by the way. Apologise to Jacob. We should apologise to basically. I mean, the joke is all the same fans said, "How could you kick Rain on?" They'll be like, "It's a good move, actually. I like this." Everyone's so close because of the whiplash. But all I have to say is this, Pimp. You remember that first stage? They probably should have lost to Red Canids, mate. Like, Red Canids, you had a chance to rid us of the land of this foul evil, to be on some Tolkien shit. Like, you could have ended this, because I have to say it right now, Pip. Again, I'll say it when it's after the 2BO1s. I still don't believe in FaZe, mate. What I believe is, listen, Twisted Frozen are fucking unbelievable. I'll even say, fair play to Jacob. He's impressed me in this stage. My obvious problem here is, as I said on Twitter, Brokey, you're still in the fucking... I've still got, like, the fucking spotlight on you. You're trying to escape from prison, mate. I'm going to catch you. Like, Jacob, I don't know. Maybe he makes it. Maybe he was the guy who took 3 months to come. I don't know. He's at least young enough. He's at least experienced. The problem I have is, like, Brokey's so bad. Bro, I don't believe in FaZe still. And this all, like, FaZe magic. FaZe magic isn't like Winneche or one. Come on. FaZe magic was like you play Vitality when the best, second best team in the world, and you just beat them in, like, the semis of the major. So, like, that's some FaZe magic shit. That's like, what? That's why it's magic. This is like, he just did, like, a fucking... He did that trick with the dog where you just put the 3 cups and then the dog picks the wrong one and the dog biscuits were under the other one. Like, that's not even that good. It's all right, but you only beat your dog doing that. There's my analogy for you.
It's so funny, because I feel exactly the same when we had this whole reaction, I guess, was it Red Candidates when Kerrigan defused the bomb with 0.4 seconds left or something, and everyone praises that as, the FaZe magic is bad. It's like, how fucking low have we gone to, in stage 1, celebrate FaZe not getting knocked out by Red Candidates? If that is FaZe magic, that's... Like, there's nothing. Then nothing is magical anymore. Like, what the fuck is it when Falcons then go into a position? Is that Falcons magic all of a sudden? Like, it's not even funny at that point. And I very much agree with you. It's just it's a nightmare because you can't really predict it. Like, you don't know what the hell is going on. And I was even saying yesterday, like, imagine if Dexter played instead of Brokey in the same one. Even simple. Imagine if they kept simple.
Now I'd be fucking interested, mate. I'd be hyped.
That would be super sick, right? Because Brokey has, with all the respect, he's been having an awful tournament. I think we even found out, when you watched him in, was it Chengdu or was it, they were in Chengdu, right? I think the tournament before the major anyway, he was playing with a different mouse. So he switched mouse coming into the tournament as well. And like,
that's not a good sign.
Before major. No, you're stripped of confidence. I've done that once in my player career. I had my worst major.
It's the last gasp, right? What you're basically doing is you're just going, it must be the mouse. Like, it's almost a way to distract yourself from the problem. There's no way you do that if you think you're really good. By the way, I even said that famously at that one major simple bomb that Starladder won. It was where he was like the best player in the world, but then he changed it to a new mouse right before the major. And he told me to get the fastest click in the world. And then my joke I said to him, because I can do with this shit privately, is when he lost, I went, good, you'll be really quick clicking on the fucking Expedia to get the ticket home, dickhead. Why'd you do that? Why would you ever change the mouse? You already had it, mate. What, were you going to get even better? Like, what are you talking about? So I know what you mean. Like, to a fan, that's no big deal. You change the mouse. Like, no, that just sounds like Brokey was like, mate, I've tried everything now. Like, what's left? Fuck the mouse, I guess. Like, Yeah, maybe it's the mouse.
Yeah, I've been in that position. I did it because I had a shitty 2 weeks of practice leading up to a
Sure.
major. I'm like, immature, 17 years of age, and it must be the mouse. I'm changing that. And then you go to the tournament, you're even worse. You're so inconsistent. You can't
Okay.
do shit, and it's just that's the feeling he's having right
Sure.
now. So I feel with Brokey, and I get where he's coming from, but it's just, as you said, it's the clearest sign ever that he's just not feeling it, that he's not confident. And let's be honest, faced with any other AWPer than Brokey in this tournament, honestly, they would be playoff bound with the way they're
That'd be
playing
a
or have
dark
been playing
horse,
so
mate.
far in stage
Yeah.
two and stage three. Yeah. And the
As you
funny part is
say,
now,
we're doing it. It doesn't even have to be simple. That's like an extreme. Just give us Dexter, mate. You bring back the Dexter I saw in Falcons at the end. Ooh, I'd become a FaZe fan again. I would be in on it because here's the other thing, Pimp. I want so badly to believe in FaZe magic. I want to get in on this one, but this is like I believed in Santa. He didn't come 5 Christmases in a row. I don't believe in him anymore. I'm writing to him every day at the fucking North Pole. He's not doing anything for me. Like yes,
No,
you have to show me it. We're a fan at the end of the day. What we see in the server too.
yeah, that's true. That's true. And just to add insult to injury, right now, as we're recording right now, FaZe have just lost to the Mongols. Guess who had a bang of a game? Guess who just had the best game he's had all
Go
major
on.
long? Fucking Brokey. Brokey,
Perfect time for that.
110 ADR. He had a couple of clutches,
I love
8 months to
it.
kill
I
around.
love it.
He lost
I love it.
13-7. So Brokey playing exceptionally well.
He's
And all of
cursed,
a
mate.
sudden,
He's cursed.
it doesn't make any fucking sense. So no, I agree. Like FaZe is not going to make the playoffs. They're now 1-2. They have to win 2 best of threes against most likely better opposition. And yeah, occasionally, I think the most interesting thing about FaZe is that coming into this tournament, the only thing we knew for sure was that I guess Jacob and Brokey was potentially not part of the new project. Like, I can't see Brokey continue, to be honest. Even though if he's having another great game right here, I think he's been lackluster for too long. He was okay in Cologne ever since. It's just not been good enough. You gave him a second shot. I respect you for doing that, but it just haven't been working out. That's fair enough. It's not because we hate Brokey. It's just a fact that he's not adding right now to the team. Jacob was the same coming into this tournament. I would actually give it to him to a sense that I would be willing to give Jacob 6 more months, in the beginning of next season. I'm
Yeah.
not necessarily sure that I want to kick him, especially considering what's coming out from Kerrigan, what's coming
Yeah.
out from the interviews, that he's not in the roles that he was supposed to be in because he's still,
Sure.
we need to give him a bit more confidence. We need to mature him a little bit more. And we're seeing improvements on certain maps where he's playing in his old position. Dust 2 was the greatest example where that was the same positions he played in the team before he joined FaZe, and he's actually performing at a high level, even against some good opposition. So maybe if you could do that transition and give him 6 more months, there's still something in Jacob. I've changed my mind in that regard, that he's not a must kick anymore, but Brokey is. So if anything, we learned that from FaZe, that is still
Yeah.
not necessarily a doomed project. There is a world where if they can acquire a good AWP player or a young prospect or someone who just does slightly better than Brokey, you activate Twist, you activate Frozen, you have Jacob being, the third star player or the third rifler within that trio with a lot of potential. All of a sudden, you have a pretty cool team and pretty interesting
Yes.
team. So in that regard, I learned that about FaZe Clan, but I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon and be like, they're going to go to the playoff. And then we're going to see the FaZe magic in a quarterfinal versus Furia versus Vitality or whatnot. Like, they're just not, like, they're not cut for it right now. Just the fact that they're in stage 3 right now is way more than you could have expected. And I also do think, for the sake of it may sound harsh, but competitive integrity of the playoff, I would actually want the teams that I believe played the best Counter-Strike in the playoff. I don't
Course.
want a team that I think is not by chance or by luck, but by being so freaking inconsistent making the playoff. I would rather have a team that I can count on, that I know what I get from, and I can build up a storyline with, than a team that is just like night and day. Which is why I feel like there's only space for one Liquid or one FaZe in the playoff. If both of them are making it and by some chance play each other in the quarterfinal, I'm gonna cry. 'Cause that's too much.
Sure.
That's too much.
No. By the way, the real problem Jacob has is this. People, it's awkward to talk about the Brokey thing because he was also part of what made FaZe great once upon a time. And so since Jacob's new, it's easy to just only focus on him. But that's why I said in my tweet, don't let him having a good game make you think that FaZe is fine. Like, Brokey still had most of his issues in almost every map. The only other game he had a good one, it was like some other shit team in the first round of the fucking playoffs or whatever. So I know I also look at it and I just think to myself, like, you're also not doing Jacob a favour by having an AWPer doing fuck all in the game. Like, Let's see a real AWPer, a FaZe level AWPer. Then we'll see if Jacob can hang or not. And also, a lot of the pressure will be taken off him. I mean, I'll give you an example. It's why I keep giving Yuri props in Furia. Because when they were an all-Brazilian squad, I'm sorry, I was done with Yuri at that point in time. The idea he was going to be the second best player, like, you've had your time, mate. Your level's gone off a little bit. I even used to joke about the sort of real-life stuff, like, do you have distractions in life, etc. I understand it, But that when you put all these other players around him, where he doesn't have to perform, now all of a sudden he has time to breathe, mate. Now we can have some good games. Now we can have a game where he pops off. He's not the same responsibilities, but as a result, you don't get the same blame. You also get a bit of time you can be a back player. If you put a Dexter into this squad and you already have Frozen and Twists, mate, Jacob only has to be the 4th best player. That might be possible. That might not be too much. Right now, in theory, he has to be like the third best player, and then they have to carry that the AWP just feeds the whole time. So I also think, I know what you mean. If you change the AWP, I'm willing to do it one by one. We'll give Jacob, the first part of the next season, and then we'll see how he does.
And that's also what came to mind, because I think let's imagine the FaZe would have lost to Red Canids. They would have gone out of stage 1 of the major. Like, we wouldn't have this rivalry. Like, none of us would know that Jacob could actually play decent
right.
Counter Strike. That's something we'll learn afterwards.
Yeah.
And I also think there was a realistic chance that if you're Kerrigan, like, you know for a fact that you have 1, 2, maybe 3 years back, depending on how it's gonna go. Like, it's the same situation as Fallen. We are looking at a Kerrigan who's maybe one more project in him, right? If you're Kerrigan, are you gonna commit to FaZe for another year? If that was the result, you turn up to the major, and if you look at 2025 as a whole, like, maybe if you're Kerrigan, you're thinking, what happens if I join? What happens if I offer myself to Falcons? I get to work with Sonic, as a coach, which could be interesting. What happens if I offer myself to G2 and you make Hunter a role player again? Hunter, like, there's other projects for Kerrigan that could be interesting. So I think if anything, FaZe have probably proven themselves and Kerrigan that maybe, just maybe, there's one more shot. Maybe they can give it 6 more months with one roster change and some new energy.
Yeah.
And I think that is the best possible thing that could have happened to FaZe Clan, because I think if they would have gone out against Red Canids, I think everything would have been out of there. I don't think it would have been sure or guaranteed that Kerrigan would continue with that team. I don't think Jacob would have stayed there. I sure still don't think Brokey would have stayed there. I also do want to say, and I had this, same conversation with someone in the green room yesterday. Like, we looked at G2 and we were like, better upper than Son Payers, that would be kind of interesting. Son Payers did well yesterday, and he's slowly but surely ramping up, but everyone wants a fucking better AWPer right now. There's realistically only 3 or 4 AWPers in the world that's good. The rest of them are just bang average. Wonderful maybe can step it up, to be that 5th guy in that conversation. But it's not like there's 10, 15 AWPers where you can just shop around and you can upgrade your team. One of them is Dexter, and apparently he has visa issues and whatnot, and no one wants to touch him for whatever reason, if that is it or whatnot. But apart from that, it's like impossible to find a clear upgrade. So I also do feel with the teams where, like, we could use a better AWPer, but surely you can find someone who does better than Brokey, or at least someone with more potential than Brokey. But there's no clear name that pops into my mind outside of Dexter. That's also a tough one, because in reality everyone should be fighting for Dexter, but no one wants to touch him for some reason. So it's interesting. I think the AWPers, how do you say it? Like, Danish Counter-Strike has declined to a point where we never had less talent in the talent pool. I feel like the AWP graph is the exact same one, It's just going down, 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 down. There's never been less good AWPers. And
it's why by the way, that Device is in a bad spot. I think we all spent the last year going, Device to FaZe, maybe. The joke would be that you wouldn't even click yes on that move right now. That's not a good trade.
No,
that's a fucking scam trade, mate. Like, I wouldn't even do that myself. I'd be like, look, we either sign Dexter, basically, Son Pius, or we have to go for one of these rookies and gamble. We have to go into that Eastern European gab bag and see, did we get lucky? Oh shit, it's not a Molodai. That's great, 'cause that's all right. You never know what you get out of that. It's a fucking bargain bin, innit? It's like fucking opening a pack of stickers. I should have said a case there. Everyone knows what the concept. Do you get the knife? Do you get the fucking bison? There's a lot of bisons out there too, by the way. They're not all knives, I'll tell you that right now. There's not all fucking shadow daggers out there. No, this will be the last point. I also agree on the Kerrigan angle. I have actually never entertained the idea Kerrigan would leave since he did this second return to FaZe, because even in the worst times last year, they could fuck around and make the major final. They still had like 2 or 3 players that are world class. I used to always think, mate, why if I'm Kerrigan would I leave? I'm in the spot where everyone respects me, everyone loves, people even want to play with me, and really it's more as we're just one move away. We are actually the one more superstar. We're the Falcons, right? If we can get one more player, we fix FaZe, and in that case, we're back into the Kerrigan wins all the trophies. I'll tell you what, with the team they have now, the person, by the way, who's actually painted himself in the corner is Twists, because Twists, you just joined, mate, and presumably you've signed a contract or something like you might just be there for a while now. I don't know what you do. But we heard the rumours of Frozen Mac Lee to Na'Vi. By the way, I don't blame him. If I was looking at Na'Vi, I told people this story before. Last year, when they won the major, but it might even have been when they bombed that Pro League and Cole beat them, I heard that Elise just asked straight up to Na'Vi, like, can I join? Can I just be instead of Imma? Because I'd do the same thing. If I was in Cole, I'd be going, mate, I can do what this Imma guy does, and what, I get to win the major. Bro, sign me up. Can put me in, coach. I'd be doing that if I'm frozen. I get it, yeah, mate. If you go to Na'Vi, now we're talking, Na'Vi, quite interesting, yeah, we're cooking, etc. The problem you have is, if you're Kerrigan, they can't let him go, mate. The project ends. It's why fans going, he should just become the coach. Who's his IGL going to be? You haven't thought that part through. But I know what you mean. I never would have considered it before. But as of right now, if you're Kerrigan and you're cynical and you go, you know what, mate, maybe I have one more year. Maybe I have one last year, which is 2 more majors, and then that's it. So if I ever want to get to the 2 majors won, if I ever want to get to 3, I better cook now. Like, I better get into a position where I can win tomorrow. Here's the problem if you're FaZe. Those exist. Look, I obviously wouldn't do the liquid move because he's just been through the whole thing with the Liege. I don't know if you can make it would kind of be silly to walk back into that again if that was your real problem. But I'll tell you what, there are teams out there where I look at some of the rosters and I do think, mate, the classic one for me is obviously Mouse. Bro, give those players to Carrigan. And hey, we'll have a fun last couple of majors, mate. If you give him exertion and Spinks and fucking... He might be able to cook with that squad. He might be able to win the major. He might be able to, so I know what you mean. If you're Carrigan, it should at least be a consideration. You could still go somewhere else. By the way, you saw from that interview with those players. Mate, right now, Carrigan's form this year in terms of his teams is shit. See how many players still said he was the GOAT? Today. He has mad cachet. In fact, I'll give you a quick example. That's something back in the day I was actually told by people outside of the French scene. You know, in the French scene, eventually they all give up on existence. They were like, I choked. I was told it's only the French players think that. And that actually, if he'd ever gone to an international squad, that supposedly all the other teams were just like, I've always respected existence. I would take him as my IGL or whatever. And that was maybe the one move he didn't do. Maybe at the end he should have gone and tried to be like in a FaZe type team, basically, and have all the star players. If you're Carrigan, the thought should at least cross your mind. If you bomb out here in the group stage, at least give it 5 minutes thought. You don't have to do it. You can be Mr. FaZe till the end. It'll be cool. You will be a legend of FaZe, etc. But I also wouldn't blame you if you want one last crack in like a real squad.
Yeah, I think that's the nuance that I think is important to highlight when you think of Carrigan and his career. Like, he's always been a project guy. He's always been a guy coming into a team, making that team a project, then getting them to be number one. And then we know the story in Mouse. You know, they made Mouse the number 1 team in the world.
That was epic what he did there, yeah.
Yeah, he even had that stint in, was it Envious for 6 months? You know, obviously they paid him an awful lot of money to qualify for the major and made them competitive. You know, it wasn't a world beater, never really won anything, but he made them competitive. And then he went into FaZe, and then he went into FaZe again the second time around. So he's always been a project kind of guy, and that's my notion. You know, I think he has one more project in him, and I don't think it comes down to whether Carrigan wants to stay in FaZe or not. But I think you're right on the money when you're saying Frozen, because if Frozen leaves FaZe, and Carrigan is sitting back with that.
Yeah,
you cook with Twist, you cook with Jacob, you still have Brokey. You can't replace Brokey with an obvious upgrade in an AWP player as of right now. I think Carrigan would be tempted to then leave. It could also be that Carrigan and Frozen in the package. I don't, and that's the thing why it's always so speculative when we talk roster moves. We don't know the inner workings of the contracts. We don't know if Frozen contract is running out by the end of the year, so Frozen is free to go wherever he wants to and gets a big fat signing bonus, you know, and maybe he re-signs a contract with FaZe if he believes in the project, but it costs an awful lot of money to get him to re-sign, etc., which is why I agree with you. Twist is probably the most fucked player in that lineup right now if someone decides to leave, because he's going to be stuck there, because obviously FaZe can't allow Carrigan, Frozen, and Twist to leave at the same time unless they just want to lose the entire team or the entire project. So I think it comes down to Frozen. If Frozen stays and if Carrigan can convince Frozen to stay in FaZe, maybe they all stay. Maybe they give it another shot with Jacob. They find a replacement for Brokey, and FaZe in 26 could be interesting. If Frozen pulls the trigger and leaves, then I'm almost certain that Carrigan will highly consider if he can get a role, maybe in Navi. You know, imagine, and I don't want to remove Alexi B to be completely honest, but imagine a pair where you pair up Carrigan and Blade just for the fun of it.
By the way, if you want to get really crazy, the obvious really crazy one is Falcons, bro. If you give him Falcons, by the way, even if he didn't do it, who wouldn't be hyped as shit for that? You know what I mean? My desk just raised like 2 centimeters when I said that.
That's the thing, right? Kerrigan and Sonic never really worked together. Wouldn't that be cool to see, you know, those
that was 9 years ago, though. Yeah, it'd be cool to run it back, right? And then the career on a cool note.
Yeah. I think that's let's hope for that. That'll be fucking sick. Let's hope.
Also, I'll tell you a toxic as fuck narrative. I'll just plant this seed now. If Carrigan goes and wins with Zonic, then Zonic can go, actually, I was the one deciding who won the majors all along. Glaive, you had yours with me. You got one with the Apex, Carrigan. It's toxic. That's not true. Obviously, Glaive was fucking goated. But
the problem,
for a fan, you could do it. You could do it.
Yeah. The problem is, I don't think Sonic would survive long enough to get Kerrigan.
Okay.
Right. That's the issue.
Right, I see.
So Kerrigan will probably join without Sonic at that point. So, yeah.